Pause it. Now rewind. Today we are going to be talking about why these 9 minutes from 28 Days Later are absolutely terrifying. But before we get into all that, let's back up. 28 Days Later is one of the best zombie movies ever made, even if it technically doesn't feature zombies, but infected. It's a bit like watching Death Wish 3. There are no zombies, but the gang members act like a horde of undead against the everyday folk.
We'll come in here anytime we like. You got that? Pop! Anytime!
Danny Boyle's infected even look like zombies, covered in blood from head to toe, and they run really fast. In the film, a group of misguided animal rights activists free a caged chimp infected with the rage virus from a medical research lab. When London bike courier Jim wakes up from a coma a month later, he finds his city all but deserted. On the run from the zombie-like victims of the rage, Jim stumbles upon a group of survivors, including Selena and cab driver Frank, as well as his daughter Hannah, and joins them on a perilous journey to what he hopes will be safety. Split into two distinct halves, the film juxtaposes two different styles of horror: suspenseful, adrenaline-filled action and a more methodical paced, psychological charge horror. While there are some who will surely lament this change in pace and style midway through the film, there's no denying 28 Days Later is a film that reignited the zombie craze, bringing a fresh perspective to an otherwise formulaic genre. The film's social commentary comes into view in the latter half, when said survivors are taken advantage of by the soldiers they thought would be their salvation. Having followed a radio signal advertising safety and an answer to infection, the main characters discover the answer is military rule and what is ostensibly sexual slavery for the women. The idea that soldiers represent safety is in line with the view that civilization is a structure that protects mankind from their baser impulses with force. As we see in the transformation of our protagonist, the rageful impulse has less to do with man's base nature than an oppressive state that positions itself in opposition to humanity. This is what we'll be focusing on today: Jim's legendary rampage. It's hard to think of another sequence in any film that will raise your adrenaline levels to this degree. It's sheer, visceral, aggressive brilliance. This scene signifies the whole movie, the rage in man. The entire movie we see the infected as the monsters, but we are, of course, capable of equal rage. The conclusion of our film inverts the usual scenario in which helpless victims cower indoors while the monsters roam outside, occasionally bursting through a door or scattering a glass window to claim another victim. In Boyle's film, Jim, after being exiled from the military compound, goes full-blown homicidal psycho on the sleazy soldiers who have ill intentions for his friends. In one of the great climaxes in the history of the horror genre, Jim cleans house like Jason Voorhees on steroids, a horrifying image of rage that has nothing to do with a virus, and it's a small miracle that Selena sees past his bloodstained visage to determine that he is not infected, sparing his life, when earlier she had threatened to kill him without hesitation if he turned.
That was longer than a heartbeat.
Cillian Murphy gives a fiercely convincing and scary performance, one so much so that he briefly became typecast as world-class creeps following this film. Frankly, without Murphy, this big conclusion simply wouldn't work as well as it does. Another big reason for this is John Murphy's music work that has rightfully joined the ranks of iconic horror movie scores. The major centerpiece track, In the House in a Heartbeat, which plays over Jim's assault, is a stunning model of mood setting that escalates into a heart-pounding crescendo of guitar strings. The music recurs in several scenes in the sequel, 28 Weeks Later. It is also featured in a climatic fight scene in 2010's Kick-Ass and throughout the sequel, Kick-Ass 2. Some viewers might find the lo-fi camera work a little off-putting, especially now that we're used to 4K and beyond, but the grimy photography is precisely what makes the film a nightmarish exercise in digital art. Boyle apparently chose to shoot the film on consumer-grade DV cameras as a way of emulating the down-to-earth feel he was going for, likening the production to shooting as if the crew were survivors in an apocalyptic wasteland. Digital cameras at the time still had a noticeably grimier aesthetic, as their image quality was not as clean as it is today. Boyle used these cameras in scenes of tension or shock, invoking a sense of discomfort and surrealism from the post-apocalyptic setting. The result is an undeniable sense of dread that is hard to pin down for non-cinephiles in the audience. There are many subtle tricks this movie does to disorient you and put you into the space of the victims. Like for instance, the mailer reveal quickly cuts to that of the private's reaction, which is done so quickly as to distract you, setting you up, where if you really were ambushed, you might have caught a glimpse of Mailer, looked away, then would have been attacked when it was too late. It plays on you being distracted to initially scare you with his reveal, but then uses a second boom to heighten the jump scare. Basically magnifying the effect and being effective with what is essentially a gimmick.
Come on, then! What the fuck you gonna do now?
Another example is an audio one, with the soldier taunting Mailer. We cut to Mailer standing, looking at the soldier, and at the same time playing the pitter-patter of an infected.
What the fuck you gonna do now?
You are given time to react to the soldier and question why he's not shooting. You hear footsteps, confused as to why Mailer isn't moving, even if subconsciously. And all this time, it's a setup to hamstring you psychologically for the visual matchup of the footsteps of another infected. In those few seconds, through clever editing, you are brought to the same level of disorientation as the victims. That is what you call very good storyboarding and shot planning before filming. Plain and simple. There are many other interesting details in this sequence that we can dig into. When Mailer is unchained, you can see that a bit of his human intelligence still prevails inside of him. He stops as soon as he realizes he can't reach Jim, and he knew he was released once Jim shot the chain without even looking at it. He knows that Jim just helped him, still wants to kill him, but feels the urge to first go after the ones who chained his neck and left him to starve. In other zombie movies, he would have just started groaning and scratching the wall trying to reach Jim, yet he didn't. Also, later on, notice how Mailer didn't even try to attack Jim, almost like he knew who his targets were. Not just that, but he also knew where everyone was. Think about it. He didn't attack the cowardly soldier first. He attacked the dude in the hat because he knew that he was the most dangerous. And he didn't go after the girls who were able to make their escape. The only one that did come close was the soldier in the hat who was looking for Hannah. And again, notice how when Jim jumped out of the window, Mailer didn't go for him, just the soldier on the ground. Mailer seemed to let Jim live in that bedroom, so you know that the infected do indeed have some intelligence. Okay, that might all have been a bit of a stretch. Sure, a lot of the spare lives came about purely because of time and lack of opportunity, but the movie sure does leave it open. Mailer sure does seem to be a lot more pissed off at his former cohorts than anyone else.
Let's now move on in a completely different direction.
The eye gouging scene is freaking brutal. The look on Jim's face and the soldier's scream just makes it. It is truly one of the most realistic pain screams heard in cinema. One thing interesting about this rampage is that while it's one skinny little dude going up against a platoon of soldiers, which, while it would make no sense if he won under different circumstances, it's still quite plausible with the way the scene is executed. Jim scoped out the mansion and got an idea of its layout and where the guards would be posted, and used that to his advantage. After letting Mailer go, he was able to conserve his strength and save it for when he actually needed it, when he took out a couple of soldiers himself. Not all rampages have to be through brute force. Jim rampaged smart. Jim becomes a fusion of human intelligence and strategy, and the zombies' brutality and rage keep a tight control of both, making him in essence the perfect predator. Not bad for a bike courier with no combat experience. And it's not exactly like this group of soldiers were in top tier condition either. One soldier is mysteriously out of ammo for no real reason. One moment he's told to guard the stairs, the next, no ammo.
I haven't got any bullets. I haven't got any fucking bullets.
They were close to the end when Jim and company arrived. It just took the introduction of, as the Joker would say, a little anarchy.
Introduce a little anarchy. Upset the established order, and everything becomes chaos. Oh, and you know the thing about chaos? It's fair